welcome to Studio 5. We have a great show in store. Elevation Worship's Chris Brown is here with their new album. Their last project took them to the recent Grammy Awards, along with Maverick City Music's Dante, Bowe, who is also with us today. And we have the good story behind the film, The Bad Guys. So let's jump right in with this week's countdown of the top 5 stories in the world of uplifting entertainment. Here are the first 2. At number 5.
Grammy goes to Old Church Basement, Elevation Worship, and Maverick City Music.
Maverick City Music and Elevation Worship take home the prize for Best Contemporary Christian Album.
I will never forget that little basement where this beautifully wild season between our two artists, our two groups began.
And God we believe, God we believe for it. CeCe Winans.
23 Dove Awards, 15 Stellar Awards, 12 Grammy Awards.
Make that 15 Grammys.
Grammy goes to Never Lost, CeCe Winans.
With this year's Best Gospel Performance, Best Contemporary Christian Music Performance, and Best Gospel Album.
Wow, you know, I've been doing this a long time, but it's still wow. Kind of overwhelming. I just think that it's the faithfulness of God.
At number 4.
But I got to ask you right now, Pastor Washington, you came in as a senior statesman into that situation. Don't let me tell you about it. You tell me, what happened? What happened? What happened?
Denzel Washington talks about the Oscars, Will Smith, and what happens now, while speaking at Bishop T.D. Jakes' Leadership Summit.
There's a saying, when the devil ignores you, then you know you're doing something wrong. Conversely, when the devil comes at you, maybe it's because you're trying to do something right. And for whatever reason, the devil got a hold of it. I don't want to say what we talked about, but who are we to condemn? You know, I don't know all the ins and outs of the situation, but I know the only solution was prayer. The way I saw it.
That's a great start to our countdown this week. We'll pick it back up at number 3 in just a little bit. Right now, taking a seat for this week's Studio 5 sit down is Chris Brown. You've heard his voice on stage with Elevation Worship, and if you're a churchgoer, you've likely sang lyrics Chris has had a hand in writing. He's with us this week sharing the latest work on the Elevation project. It is called Lion.
Do you see what I see? Do you see what I see? Oh, I see lightning, I hear thunder.
Chris, is this the 10th album for Elevation or the 14th?
6 feet under.
Good question.
Dead things coming back to life again. I believe there's about to be another resurrection.
It's the 10th live album.
Oh, I see signs and I see wonders. I see birds of living color.
So before we talk about the music on the album, I want to talk about the cover because the album title is Lion, right?
Yes.
And there's a lamb on the cover.
Yes.
Explain.
Revelation chapter 5 describes, is the only place in Scripture where we see side by side, or in one passage where Jesus is referred to as the Lion of the tribe of Judah and the Lamb. Even within that juxtaposition, or even in that seeming contradiction, we wanted to portray within Jesus is he's all things.
How does this compare to previous projects, you think? What's different about it?
Oh
didn't really know what to do with some of what we were writing. We weren't writing specifically with this album in mind. We just kept creating and having fun with friends over the last year. And then we obviously made the decision to just put everything on this one project and let it all exist together. And then conceptually, that actually like felt great to us. We loved how colorful, like stylistically, the whole album
is. How are you feeling now that it's out?
I feel awesome. I will say what I just mentioned about the diversity and styles of the songs was like the thing that had me the most worried. But I think now that it's been out, I've seen more than any other album, I've seen people attach themselves to more songs throughout the album. It's not one or two songs that are standing out alone. And so I think my biggest concern has been like one of the coolest parts that, you know, it's like, you get a song, you get a song.
I love it. What's your prayer for this project?
Man, I really, really hope that when people are listening, I think that I just hope that they find moments of God's approval over them, and they find God's, you know, whisper of his love for them when they hear a song like The One You Love, or if they need to get woken up a little bit and their faith's shaken, they find that in Lion. But I think my hope for anything we ever put out, which is such a privilege and such an honor to ever be able to create something that people would take the time to listen to. I think I'm just praying that, you know, the songs would go to places we would never imagine, and not for our sake, but so that, you know, these songs can be you know, have a healing ministry to them and work their way into kitchens, and parents and kids will be dancing together in a sweet way to the song dancing, and it'll be encouraging, and God will use it however he, you know, chooses. So anytime, like I said, that I'm a part of creating something that then people are listening to or consuming at some level, it's just such an honor.
Elevation Worship's Lion is available right now wherever you purchase your music. Still to come.
On your knees, bad guys, with your hands up. Never. We're out of here.
A Studio 5 behind-the-scenes look at DreamWorks' newest animated feature, The Bad Guys.
Chicken, you want some cake? You seem a little hangry.
At number 3.
Moses with the passage. Safely, Lord God, please make an example. I tried to break shackles, now they ankles in shambles.
Grammy Award-winning musician Chance the Rapper returns to the music scene with a new single called Child of God.
A rich man, the size of the needle that the camel fits. Walking to Jesus with my sandals wet.
This release includes an art collaboration and an unveiling at the Museum of Contemporary Art. At number 2.
In these turbulent times, more than 200 million listeners have turned to a Minnesota man for a sense of calm and peace.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Father Mike Schmidt's Pandemic Project is now an international phenomenon.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
His Bible in a Year podcast has climbed to number 1 with some 240 million streams and counting.
It's two guys from Minnesota reading the Bible, and it rose to number 1.
Who could have thunk it?
We were shocked.
Are you surprised so many people are so interested in hearing the Bible every day of the year?
So that doesn't surprise me. What surprised me was that it was the one that I did. That was helpful or successful in this particular way.
Welcome back to Studio 5. We will continue the countdown of the best headlines in uplifting entertainment in just a little bit. Right now, we turn to the bad guys, notorious criminals, Mr. Wolf, Mr. Snake, Mr. Piranha, Mr. Shark, and Miss Tarantula. The great voices behind this fun animated feature are with us with more.
Hey, you, get over here. Oh, I know what it is. You're afraid because I'm the big bad wolf, the villain of every story. Duh. And this is the crew: Miss Tarantula, Mr. Shark, Mr. Piranha, Mr. Snake.
Everyone copy.
Copy. Copy. Copy. Copy. We're the bad guy.
I guess take me back to the birth of this project. How did it come about?
It came about probably 6 years ago with Damon Ross, who produced the movie, stumbled upon a little line from the Scholastic team saying, well, this is a book that we have, and this is the story of these 5 criminals that are the big bad wolf, and they're becoming good.
We were never given a chance to be anything more than criminals. But these are the cards we've been dealt, so we might as well play them. Here, let me help you. Are you okay, ma'am?
What did you think of the storyline, bad guys going good?
You ever wonder what it'd be like if the world wasn't scared of us? Never gonna happen. Guys, we're gonna go good.
Did you get hit on the head?
Well, I liked it. I mean, I liked the entire dynamic, but you know, like I mean, it's a story about friendship. So like these guys finding their hearts was, it's a good story for anybody.
Craig, what did you think about the storyline?
I dug it. I loved it. It was, you know, it's got funny, but it's got that feel good, you know, attached to it.
We may be bad, but we're so good at it. Arrest them! We're out of here. So long, suckers!
It was such a fun journey just to make this, and just to have us adults who love these movies enjoying to make it for children and just really get them to appreciate that genre.
I'm gutless? Oh, I'm sorry. Have we met? I'm the villain of every story.
In telling the story, are you taught something new? Anything new for you?
Wolf's story is quite close to, in a way, my own personal story. So I had to, you know, I projected a lot in it, you know, where, not that I was a bad guy who became a good guy, but like it's the story of a character who changes his ways, you know, and just decides to embrace a new life. And so that was very, you know, very close to me in a personal way, and therefore, you know, yes, definitely learns a lot on a personal level.
Of course you wouldn't know anything about that with your little Miss Perfect power suits.
Is that so?
Wait a second, how did you?
A wolf and a fox are not so different.
You have a favorite character? Is the wolf your favorite character in this?
It is, yeah, he is. For what I just said earlier, he's going through stuff that I was going through as well, yeah.
Well, I'm tired of being an outcast. Maybe I don't want to be a what? A bad guy?
You're going to have to choose between your friends or the good life.
They're the only friends I've ever had.
You have a chance to write your own story. What have you got to lose?
I don't know, my dignity?
Yeah, well, that ship has already sailed.
The Bad Guys is in theaters April 22nd, and we'll look to have even more on this fun film as we get closer to its release. This is a great time to turn our attention to a story in pictures. Here's this week's Studio 5 Snapshot.
The award-winning music franchise Take Me to the River returns in a few short weeks with Take Me to the River, New Orleans. As you can see in these bright, smiling images, it celebrates the rich musical history, the heritage, legacy, and influence of New Orleans and Louisiana. This is a true collaboration and melting pot of influences from around the world that came together and formed one of the world's most unique cultural jewels. This musical adventure shows the resiliency of surviving disaster and even a rebirth, pairing legacy musicians with the stars of today. And it's this week's Studio 5 Snapshot. Still to come.
I remember when I was in that old church basement.
Maverick City Music's Dante Bowe has now earned a Grammy for this collaboration with Elevation Worship.
Some calling this your most powerful career year yet. How would you describe this year?
His answer is up next when he takes a seat in Studio 5.
Award season is wrapping up, and most recently we saw the Grammy Awards, where Dante Bowe received 3 solo nominations and 2 group Grammy Award nominations, even competing against himself. We have the pleasure of spending the day with him in Nashville, where he lives these days.
This is the day that the Lord has made, and I ain't gonna let it slip away. I'm gonna be joyful. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I'm gonna be joyful today.
Some calling this your most powerful career year yet. How would you describe this year?
I just feel like I'm walking in the promises of God and just all the things that I was prophesied, you know, when I was younger and spoken over by my grandma, my mom, my dad. I just feel like it's coming into fruition. So I just feel, I don't know, walking in these promises.
So fast, life comes and goes. Make it last, best slow your road.
The worship stuff is really inspired by mostly like my grandparents and their walk, and that kind of sound, I guess I adopted from them. I would be in the car listening to Ty Tribbett and Yolanda Adams and CeCe Winans with my grandmother. So I adopted that worship, but then when my parents, she'd be playing like Aretha Franklin and all that. And so I think Circles was a lot of just soul undertones and R&B undertones, you know.
Now, could you always sing, or were you?
I could always sing. I was a sneaky singer, so like whenever my parents would be gone from home, I would sing out loud, or whenever I was in the shower, I would like hum on key. Anytime I was outside of those elements, I would fake sing because I was so nervous for people to hear my actual voice. And so my grandmother heard me one day and was like, "What?" And so then I became a singer that day.
So you go from small town, and we sit here today, and you're actually making history at the Grammy Awards.
Can you believe that?
Nominated in gospel and Christian at the same time.
Why? I found myself asking God all the time, who am I? Not even like spiritually, like a son I know, and I'm chosen, I'm called, predestined, but other than that, like, who am I practically to people? Because I don't think I know who I am or my impact. I don't understand my impact, even up into the Grammys. It's just the Lord showing me that, you know, you're not in control. I'm in control, and whatever I want for your life will happen.
Is it true to say that 3 years ago you were homeless?
Yeah, I was. And then I moved to Columbus, and then I started living in a trailer that my pastor was paying for. And I wrote a lot of my songs in that trailer.
Things do get better, and they lied when they said it won't.
I was so depressed, so miserable, because I'm like, this is never gonna happen for me. Because I had been singing for like 7 years prior, trying to do music, and it was just not doing it. And then Circles was the one we were like, okay, finally.
Now, I'm told you also dealt with trauma.
You know, probably the one you're talking about is just me being molested at a young age and going through sexual abuse, and then having to navigate through my sexuality through, you know, that whole season, and, you know, the Lord bringing me out on the other side of that. Even that is crazy in and of itself.
So in talking about it with God, was there any blaming God or asking God why, or how could you let this happen?
There was a few times I did ask God why. The trauma had already happened. So that was I was asking God, like, pretty much, why would you allow me to go through this? This is horrible. You know what I mean? Like, the aftermath is horrible. You know what I mean? Obviously, the act is too, but the aftermath is even longer. I never really blamed him, though, because I just, you know, he was with me. He kind of, like, helped me get through it.
Congratulations to Dante Bowe on all of his musical success. We know there is lots more to come. Before we take this quick break, we have made it to the final story in this week's countdown of the best in uplifting entertainment. Here's what's finishing in first place this week. At number 1.
I know, I've been so blessed and so fortunate. It's not to forget about where I came from. It's to utilize those talents and gifts for God's greater use and purpose. And so when it hit me, I was like, you know what? This is what I got to do. And what better than to find a way to utilize my best talents and attributes and what I do best in my primary business, and to find a story that would bring people closer to God or to faith or to each other.
Actor Mark Wahlberg sharing what's motivating him and his work these days.
I can't help but to recognize the physical transformation that we watch you go through. I mean, I want to say you packed on 30 pounds for this role. How difficult was that, and why did you think that was important?
It was miserable, and it was important because, and this is very important, I get it, I've done it a bunch of times, actors talking about their physical transformations for the part. Stu transformed so much physically and spiritually. Everything about him was predicated on his physical prowess until he came down with this rare disease. And then as his body started to deteriorate, his spirituality soared.
Welcome back. Music is a big part of our show, and for this week's soundtrack, we are traveling back in time to 2014 with Mali Music. His Beautiful is what's playing in my ear this week.
My whole life has turned around, and I can't go without saying that I thank God for you all now. For you, I'm a lighter in the air for you. I see what you're doing, I see what you go through. Put my lighter in the air, the truth is you're beautiful, beautiful.
Put my lighter in the air for love, you are beautiful. On that musical note, we are almost out of time for this edition of Studio 5. So let's, for a quick moment, look ahead and see a story from next week's rundown.
Sight and Sound Theater's doors are open again with a new Bible production, The Story of David.
Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me.
We're taking you behind the scenes in a Studio 5 special.
Was producing a Goliath for you?
Yeah, you could definitely say that. You could say that. It's a big undertaking.
Now, we certainly hope you'll make time to join us for that story and so much more come next week. Before we say goodbye this week, we want to return to Elevation Worship and give the final word to Chris Brown.
If Chris today could go back and speak to little Chris, what would you tell him?
Man, good question. Don't get so consumed with where you're not, and don't get so bummed out that things aren't what they used to be at the same time. Enjoy what's happening right now, whether it's Chris as a husband, Chris as a father. Seasons are different in ministry, seasons are different in family, and I think one of the things I'm still learning is, and kind of struggle with, is always looking either so far ahead or at the same time kind of, oh, well, it used to be this way, and constantly putting myself in the present and understanding this is the space and the place that God has me right now, and let me not miss out on these opportunities, and just remind myself of that.
Elevation Worship's Chris Brown, thank you. That is a great final word for this edition of Studio 5 and this week's look at uplifting entertainment. Until next time, make time to uplift someone around you, and then please come on back and see where Studio 5 takes you next week. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.